Welcome to More Than Dentistry, where your hosts Evert and Waldo discuss life, dentistry, and everything in between with dentists around the world.
Hello and welcome to the More Than Dentistry podcast.
Thank you and welcome to More Than Dentistry. We're sitting here with Terry Greyling, the legend.
The man,
the voice.
the voice of GC.
So, welcome, Terry. You're also one of our listeners.
Yes, definitely. I really enjoy your interviews with these guys.
Yeah, thanks. Terry, I think let's start off with how did you grow up? How did you get into dentistry? And when did you start?
Well, the reason I got into dentistry is that I was terrible at maths.
So we got into dentistry.
So my parents, and I wasn't learning at school, so my parents sent me to Potch Boys High where they would donor you and get you to do your homework and what have you. But you know, they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
So I still sat there with James Bond books inside my school books, pretending I was studying. And when I flunked my maths, my parents said I must go for extra maths, then I can go to university, I just need to rewrite the maths. So I said they could kill me, lock me in a darkened room, I'm never going to touch another maths book. So then I didn't have many options open but to become a dental rep, because my father was a dental mechanic.
Okay.
And he was the chief buyer at Esco Dental Clinic, and one day I saw an ad in the paper for P. Grant Smith looking for trainee dental reps. So I phoned my dad up and I said, Dad, what do you know about this P. Grant Smith company? He said, my son, that's the best dental company in South Africa. They're the sole agents for all the best products. Their rep has been calling on us for 20 years. He gets a new car every 2 years. He's just put in a swimming pool, penguin pool. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. So I phoned them up. They said to me, there was no fax machines, no TVs, nothing, 1969.
Sure.
He says, the boss says to me, so what makes you interested in the dental business? I said, oh, my dad's a dental mechanic. He says, oh, who's your dad? I said, Les Greyling. He says, oh, come in for the interview, you've got the job. Because my dad was the chief buyer and he used to buy lots and lots of products from that company. So I only got the job because of my father. So yeah, that was my lucky break, and then we had to get the traveller's orders out. You had to work in the sundries for 6 months, you had to work in the tooth department for 6 months, you had to work in the workshop for 6 months, you had to work in the buying department where you went down to the Jeppe Street post office to clear the goods through customs. Anything that contained rubber had import duty on it, but instruments were duty free. Okay. And there was a big lab called JLJ van Rensburg. It was a tooth factory. He had about 50 technicians working there, mechanics. And they used to do postal work all over South Africa, and they were cheap with their denture work. And they had a direct phone to our office. They turned the little handle, and it rang through. And if it rang 3 times and you didn't answer, you were in big trouble. And if they didn't get their teeth within half an hour of placing the order, there was more trouble.
Really?
We had 7 messengers sitting on a little wooden bench waiting to run with the goods. So when the phone rang, we had to pick up the goods, write out the invoice on a carbon paper book, write it in a delivery book, give it through the hatch to one of these runners, messengers, and they had to run 2 blocks and up the first flight of stairs. And we used to sell odds teeth, just one tooth. And they used to phone up, say, 1x6, 1x8 Dentron shade 2. They didn't even have Vita shades for the Dentron teeth those days. It was shades 1 to 10, from light to dark. And one day, one of our reps was getting on the booze and the alcohol, and a big lab from Germiston phoned up and said, if we don't see a rep today, we're closing our account. And his account was astronomical. He used to have a lot of mechanics working for him, and they were ordering lots and lots of teeth. So the boss said to me, I was a Friday and I had an old Cortina Mark I, and I used to feed the meter with 5 cents and go home over weekends, but in the week I had to come on the bus because it was too expensive for parking and petrol and stuff like that. So he said, I want you to go and look for this address in Germiston and go up on the rooftop where the servants' quarters was on the top of the block of flats. This lab had cheap premises there. So I went and I had to take the order for the teeth, and on Monday I had to do the order and get them delivered. And when I got to this lab technician, he was an elderly guy, and he said, what's your name? And then he said to me, I said, Greyling. He says, haven't you got a father who's a mechanic as well? I said, yes. He said, I know your dad. Anyway, he found the boss and the teeth were all right. Luckily, I don't know how I did it. And then he said, I want this guy to come and look after our tooth consignment in future. And then they couldn't find this rep. He was in Swaziland gambling and what have you. There was no cell phones or anything. He used to tell them his car had broken down.
Oh, really?
And they pulled him into the office. He was brilliant. So they tried to control his drinking. They put him in an alcoholic rehab center and everything. And he was the cleverest guy in the dental industry. He could have been the managing director if he just applied himself. And that's how I got my lucky break. They gave me an old Opel record station wagon that they used to transport plaster in. It was, the springs were shot. It smoked like hell. The rings were shot. And for a few weeks I drove that car, and because he was such a good rep and they had all the good products, it was easy for me to just go around to the doctors and get the orders. And the doctors never even used to ask the price of materials those days. It was considered unethical because the rand was much stronger than the dollar, and materials were nothing to the dentists. It was wonderful. If you showed him a good product, he would just say, send it. No asking of price even. And that's how we started off in the dental industry.
Terry, let's, we don't have a lot of time, and I know you can talk a lot, so we need to skip 40 years to the present. We've got a challenge for you. We've got that genial flow in front of you, but we want you to sell it to us, but you're not allowed to use anyone's name, and you're not allowed to mention any awards, and no percentages. So can you sell it to the two of us? Remember?
In 2 minutes.
One
That's
minute.
impossible. The thing is, we're talking to young dentists, 25 to 35-year-old. How are they going to use that genial flow? Because I think that's the one of the most exciting products we've got at the moment from GC. So tell us about that, and tell us how that's going to change young dentists' life.
Well, I think the first thing is the handling. I think to any
First tell us what it is. Some people maybe have never heard of it. Just
Okay.
quickly tell us.
Okay, this is the version of flowable that dentists have been wishing for since 1986 when they first brought out flowables. I think all dentists would actually prefer to work with flowables if they had the appropriate physical properties. And all I can say is that the company developed a flowable material that is as strong as any paste on the world market, and that the handling is what actually sells this product, in my opinion. Handling is so important to you guys, I've discovered over the years dealing with thousands of dentists. The fact that it doesn't slump, and the fact that it gives them good polishability, and it saves them time, I would say. There's no bubbles or porosity in it like there were in the earlier flowables. It's made under vacuum, and the way they've structured the material, the chemical, physical properties are outstanding. And all you have to do is to give the guy a syringe of A2 and put it in his hands and say, try this, and the rest is actually automatic. He'll just reorder it by himself once he's worked with it.
Well, what do you say when someone says, this product's really expensive, I can't use this in my practice? Well, what is your counter argument?
Well, our counter-argument to that is that you're less likely to have to redo any of your composites in the long run. You want to build a reputation for excellence for yourself, and I think that part of that cost will be offset by the savings in time, because time is money in a practice, as you heard in that $10,000 book that guy's written, and the Americans take it to the extreme. But I think that you're going to have to always pay for a quality product. GC is never going to be the cheapest product on the market, and we're operating maybe in the upper 30% of the market in South Africa. But a surprising number of medical aid dentists are using this product. And one of my greatest achievements was in one appointment, I got this material approved by the head of the Medicross in Johannesburg, and they looked very closely at the costs and the cost-benefit ratio. But what we did is we combined it with the Exoclear for the injection molding technique, and they could see the benefit in lab savings and all that, so they gave this on to the doctors. And the same thing with the EverX Flow. They could see the benefit of saving teeth and the strength of the material, even though it's an expensive, relatively expensive material.
How does that? Sorry, Terry, how does the price compare to like Filtex flowables or Filtex?
It's a little bit more. And
40% more or 10% more? Not that much.
No, it's about 15%,
Okay.
15 to 20% more. But our sales, as I say, have been skyrocketing, and it's not in South Africa. It's on a global basis. In Japan, over 30% of their composite sales is now injectable, and I know that other manufacturers are now coming on board with this injection molding technique because one of the world's biggest manufacturers has sent one of their opinion leaders now for a course overseas on injectables. Well,
So you're seeing that's taking off in South Africa as well, the injectable?
yes, definitely.
Well, are you using it a lot?
I use Genial very much, not so much in the injectable situation, but I use that as a when I want to be certain about what I'm going to do. That's when I'll rely on a.
Would you use
like
it for
a
big composites like posterior?
Yeah, but not the whole big thing. I mean, probably the lining and getting up into strong areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't use it as like on the occlusal surface, or would
Yeah,
you?
I definitely will do that because it's really hard. It's
I've only used one of them and I was super surprised, but I've got so many composites that I need to work for. I think I showed you all the composites I've got. I just need to work through them and then I'll start buying.
It's like Dr. Mark Bose.
Yeah.
He's got so many composites, he can start his own shop there.
Exactly. So you need to finish what you've got. I think that's one of the main tips. Young people, we can't not look at price because things are expensive. We live in Africa. We need to look at price. So we need to use what you've got. But when you buy something properly and then make sure you use it optimally. Don't waste your material.
Yeah, I use mainly when I use other composite. I use it heated, so I like the plasticity of material, and that's where this is basically a heated composite.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and we tend to waste a lot of packable composite. You put it on, then you, especially me, and then you move it off again.
Most dentists do that.
And flowable, you don't waste that
There's
much.
no wastage with this compared to packable composites.
Yeah. Okay, so what else can you tell us about GC? What other exciting products are there to look out for?
Well, as I say, the lithium disilicate CAD-CAM blocks is going to be major news next year in about 6-7 months time from now. The 3D printing is the big thing of the future.
But talk about products for young dentists, because a 25-year-old's not going to buy a 3D printer or lithium disilicate. So what is he going to use from GC that you can recommend?
The Temp Smart is a very, very smart, and it's for once a good name. It's such an appropriate name. I think they really struck a home run there. Temp Smart, the smart temporary material. I mean, sometimes the companies give these names really tongue twisters, and it's
especially the Japanese companies.
Exactly. I mean, Genial Universal Injectable, that's a hell of a long, silly name in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we just call it GUI. And we had another one called Genial Universal Flow. We call it GUF.
Okay.
And that's for short. So, I'm very, very happy that everybody that's tried the Temp Smart really, really likes it. I don't know if any of you guys have used the Temp Smart yet.
I haven't used it. No.
Yeah, I've used it, and it's also nice and quick and polished.
So it's
nice
temporary
things.
material, temporary composite
Yes,
crown.
but it's light cured. It's dual cured.
Dual
Dual
cured,
cured,
okay.
Yeah, so it saves you 2 minutes at least on a temporary crown, and it gives you better physical properties.
Okay.
You also one of the guys that started repping curing lights right at the beginning.
Yes.
Can you tell us that story?
Yes, in 1973, Kolk in America got the patent to make a curing light, a photopolymerization light called the Nuvolite. And they got the technology, interestingly, from the giant British company called ICI, Imperial Chemical Industries. They invented the photoinitiators, and originally they had invented it as a possible paint for doing the hulls of ships, but it was horrifically expensive. So they scrapped the idea, and Dentsply Kolk bought that idea. And they brought out an ultraviolet light called the Nuvolite. It weighed 12 kilograms. It had a massive transformer in it from 110 volts to 220 volts South Africa. It was a big wooden box with a Perspex dome cover, and it had a brick of a light. And then there was a big fan inside the console, and you could only work for less than 60 seconds, and then the bulb would heat up and you would have to put it down on the console to get cold air to the thermostat would cut out. And there was no such thing as acid etched gel. We had acid that was like water, like liquid. It used to burn the patient's gingiva snow white.
Really?
And believe it or not, the bonding agent had a shelf life of 8 hours. You had to open a new little bottle of, you got like a packet of 50 amalgam capsules, and there were 50 little tiny bottles in there. There were actually 30, it was for a month's supply. And each morning you had to open up one of those bottles, put a drop of initiator in there, and you had like little wooden sticks like this that you had to stir it with, like little matchsticks. And what bond you didn't use by 5 o'clock that afternoon, you had to throw it in the bin. So the doctors used to line up all their class 4 chipped teeth and that for one day, so that they could use their bonding agent before they had to throw it away. So today when doctors complain about shelf life of 2 years and things like that, they don't know what it's like. And when they work with these lovely acid etched gels and all these luxury products, the reason I got that trip was that I'd only been at the company 5 years at that time, but I was the only guy luckily in the company that was heeltemal tweetalig. So those days there were no data projectors, no television. You had to go to all the small plattelandse dorpies throughout South Africa, and that time you still had the English Afrikaans situation in the Free State and Limpopo. So our company was owned by the British, and most of the managers and all the senior guys couldn't speak Afrikaans. So they said, we'll send young Terry there because he can gooi the taal and he can go to the Free State. And he can address the doctors in Afrikaans. So they sent me for 2 months training. And I was just lucky in life that the British London chemist had just invented glaser-onymer. So I saw glaser-onymer, I saw the world's first light curing system. And I was sent to Germany and Switzerland as well, de Trey in Switzerland, not in Germany like they are today. They were 100 years old, and de Trey's daughter married Bob de Trey's daughter married Claudius Ash of England's daughter, and they merged the two companies, de Trey and Ash, and it formed the Amalgamated Dental, and they were the sole agents for Dentsply for the rest of the world. So we sold all the Dentsply products, Cavitron Corporation. And de Trey made the world's first glaser-onymer, but it was invented in London, and I saw it in the London office of Amalgamated Dental, and went to the Ash factory where they filed the forceps still by hand, those grooves on the handles those days.
Sure.
And it's been an interesting journey, and I'm not sorry that I became a mental dental rep, because I went all over the world to all the factories, Cavo and ADEC and Aseptico and Canada, and I went to conferences in Hawaii at Honolulu, the IADR, and I went to Egypt and Athens and Turkey and all over wherever there was Dentsply conferences, Dubai, and it's been a great journey, and I can't believe that over 50 years have gone already by so quickly. And we had no fiber optic lights, we had no lasers, we had no scanners, no CAD-CAM machines. And 30 odd years ago, Prof. Hannes Nell and them started with the first CAD-CAM machine. And we thought this was unbelievable, but the gaps were about 150 microns there to fill it in with cement. But that's where it is today. And in 1986, we sold the first digital imaging sensors in South Africa. And guess what? There was no connection to computers. You had a little roll of like fax paper, a small little printer like this, with that paper that curls up like that, and if you left your x-ray near the window in the sun, the next day it was faded, it was gone. Yeah. But that's how we started off, and Professor Len Becker bought one of the first digital imaging sensors in South Africa, and he's also a legend, Prof. Len Becker, you've all heard of him. Yeah. A disciplinarian and a guy who believed in just a brass plaque, no advertising, old school. But brilliant people, those professors from Tux and those days.
Well, what do you see for dentistry in South Africa in the future?
Well, it's quite tough at the moment, and everybody's concerned about the National Health Scheme. But I don't think it's going to happen for some years yet. It's just totally unaffordable the way they propose doing it. And the latest figures we heard was that the proposals that they're showing around now were based on figures of 2010, and you all know what's happened to inflation since 2010.
Did we just ask you on that topic before you go on? Why are the people scared of it? Who are you saying? What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of the medical aid dentists who are just drilling and billing and filling and doing the sort of basic work, I think they're the ones that are the most concerned. But I think guys that have got embraced technology and that are doing high quality
Why would
work,
you be concerned? Because you're now all of a sudden going to go from a market of 8 million to 60 million, so you've got more patients.
I suppose they're concerned that the government might cut the prices or might introduce capitation or something like that. So they would have
I personally, Valdo, you can tell me if I'm wrong, what do you think? But I think it's a massive opportunity in this. I don't think it's the best thing for the country, but I think for medical professionals and for reps and for the medical industry on making
volume.
money wise, there's going to be a lot of money to be made.
Yes,
I think in the long run it's going to bankrupt the country, but I don't think there should be reason to be scared of it.
But you know, Dr. Ian Erasmus, he sees it as an opportunity as well. You remember him, he was one of the big shots of SADA and all that, and he's got a practice in Pretoria, and he says if it goes through, he'll open up more surgeries and employ more young dentists, and he sees it as a great
I think we're going to end up with not enough dentists.
Correct. Well, Professor Simon Ndantani, he said at a meeting that I was at in Klerksdorp, where I was invited to address an orthodontist study group of about 50 audience one evening about 6 months ago. He said that he's advising them to try and get up to 15,000 dental therapists and hygienists for the country for the size of the population, but I think it's unrealistic totally that the cost of training them up and getting to that number within the next decade, I don't see it ever happening. I don't know how you guys feel.
But I think that's the main thing, is we should train more therapists. If we're going to go that route, therapists are the answer. But that's off the topic. Let's stick with GC, I think, a little longer. This is obviously very exciting times in dentistry, and you've seen a lot of times in dentistry in your life. You are very knowledgeable on your products. I've always been amazed by how many stats you can remember. And so tell us, there's a lot of information out there. Reps come every day and tell us different stuff. Where's a good source of information for a young guy if he wants to have proper knowledge on products? Where can he go?
He can go to CRA, he can go to ResearchGate and all these things, MedLinks. There's lots of places where you can subscribe for a minimal fee, because getting the articles is up to $40 per article. It's totally unaffordable even for senior dentists. I'm lucky I've got a free pass to the UWC library, and I can go in there and access any of the journals that they have access to as well. And then I think they should get themselves a mentor like you guys. They must hook up with people like you and like Peter Bridges in the past, and they must try and join some study group where they can learn from the guys that have been around and made the expensive mistakes, like Dr. Valdo and people like that, and that you guys have invested so much money and so much in technology that they can really learn from guys in their area, that they can get somebody to mentor them.
Yeah, I think a big issue is everyone goes on Instagram and wants to do the stuff that those guys do, and it's not always possible. So you must sometimes just lower your expectations a little bit on what's possible.
And they have to go for these 2-year diplomas at the university and try and further their knowledge and further their training. And the implant clinic and people like that, the digital dentistry. There's so many people out there that have got excellent skills and knowledge, and even if you have to pay 10,000-15,000 rand for a weekend, you're going to get it back 10 times over in the long run, and you're not going to be making mistakes. You can't just go on the internet and just look at a YouTube video and think, no, now I'm going to do that.
I think hands-on is the key. You need to do hands-on stuff, and then you need to do that stuff. Like the courses we did with Howard Klackman, you actually place an implant, but then you go home and you have to actually place more and more and more implants, and that's doing it repetitively. That's where you get confidence. Just going and looking on the internet doesn't help. Going on a course doesn't help. You need to go back and then start doing and doing and doing. And the first 10 is going to be rubbish.
I think also involving a rep from, let's say, an implant company and saying, listen, I am trying to get into this field. is there some way that you can maybe loan me a unit to put the implant
Some of the
in?
reps from the
And they
implant
can-
companies are superbly knowledgeable. If I take Alexa and some of those people and Rashad and any of those real implant specialists, they can go into the theatre and they can assist you and guide you. It's amazing how experienced people like Brian and those people are. Because that's all they ever do, and that's the name of the game. I don't profess to be an implant person. I don't profess to be an orthodontic person. I think it's become more and more specialized. So you've got your CAD/CAM specialists today, and you've got your lab product specialists like Leo, who's put in over 50 CAD/CAMs. He just put one in Botswana yesterday, I think it was. So that, I think specialization, go to the guys that know. If you want to do orthodontics, go on your orthodontics courses, go to the ortho companies, the implant companies, and they will guide you. And if you want to know about bonding and cements and composites and impression materials, you can approach somebody like myself.
Just have a lot of time because you're going to be bombarded with information.
Yes, but I've been accused of talking too much and too long, but I've never been accused of talking nonsense or
That's true.
Or rubbish.
I've accused you of both. You never talk rubbish. You've got a lot of information.
It's like I said to a doctor yesterday. He said to me, oh, but you came here, Dr. Elandre Bosch. He said to me, you came here in 2010 and you told me SDR is the best. And I said, yes, but it was the best. I said, but now it's 10 years later. And he said, yeah, and this, you told me it was the best. I said, yes, but it was. Weren't you happy with it? He said, you know, you're right. Send me a kit of that EverX Flow and send me a kit of the... and he sent me the Essentia, and he bought everything that we recommended to him yesterday because he's had a track record with me for 20 odd years. And I said to him, have I ever sold you anything before that I told you would work that didn't work? And he said, no, you didn't.
Well, Terry, you probably, if you 50 years in a job like this, you probably enjoy it very much. Are you just going to carry on forever and ever?
Yes, I'm 5:45 flight Monday morning. I'm in Joburg. I've got a 9 o'clock appointment in Pretoria. We've got Tukkies, we've got Wits, we've got Medunsa, we've got Soweto CPD lectures to do on Friday night next week. 6th of January I come back from leave. 8th of January I leave for GC overseas, and so it goes. I'm back on the 18th, and on the 20th I leave for Joburg for the Dental Warehouse Sales Conference up in Joburg, and my bosses are coming from overseas, so we're bringing master technicians for hands-on courses, and when you look again the year's gone. So I'm excited when I get the research articles at night, and we send out SMSs at all hours of the night. I get an average of about 5 hours sleep a night if I'm lucky.
I think we should commend you on your contribution to the industry in South Africa. I think it's always nice to see you, and thanks for just GC is not paying for us to talk to Terry. I think we talk to him because we like the products and we like Terry, and he's always shares a lot of information. And I just said to him, the only guy that ever messaged me on Instagram is Terry to send me all the cases. So whenever I see a message, I know it's Terry that's sent another message. But yeah, thanks for the contribution you do for the industry.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting us. It's a privilege for our trading partner, the Dental Warehouse Henry Schein. They're a great company. And the boss of Henry Schein, who took them from nothing, one small company in New York, to the global giant with 600 offices around the world now, is a South African who comes from Port Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Stanley Bergman. And guess what? Last year he won the CEO of the United States of America. Only people like Bill Gates have ever had that honor before.
Really?
And he's now, I estimate, a billionaire in rands. He left Port Elizabeth with nothing.
Sure. It's like us. We're still here with nothing.
We'll get there. Well, thank you very much, Terry.
And Linda is one of the best reps in the country. Last year she won the Rep of the Year for Dental Warehouse against all the people in Joburg and Cape Town and Durban and all over the country. And last night she was delivering a white light to somebody who dropped his white light at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, so this morning he could be working.
The dentistry is not possible without you guys. We really appreciate you, Linda, as well. And it's always fun to have weekends like this where we can have a beer together and talk rubbish as well, not just about teeth. But we wouldn't be able to do what we do without proper products and proper service to get the products. So we thank you guys, really.
Thank you very much.
Right.
How's that?